Good morning. Welcome to Palo Alto ARB meeting. Today is keep talking. Okay.
Start. All right. Good morning.
Recording in progress.
Good morning. Happy New Year, and welcome to the first meeting of 2026. Today is the January 15th Architecture Review Board of Palo Alto meeting. So first, can we get a roll call, please?
Yes, Chair Chen,
Present.
Vice Chair Adcock, Board Member Hirsch, Board Member Jojard,
Present.
Board Member Rosenberg.
Present.
Noting we have quorum and Vice Chair Chen and Board Member Hirsch are absent.
You mean Vice Chair Adcock?
Vice Chair Adcock, so sorry.
Thank you. Thank you. And next is agenda changes, additions, and deletions.
No changes planned for today.
Thank you. And next is the public comment. This is the time for anyone who wants to speak an item that is not on the agenda. If you want to talk about something on the agendized item, there will be time for it for later this meeting. Do we have any public comment?
Through the chair, I have not received any public comment cards at the moment, so I do not have any public comment, nor any raised hands on Zoom.
Okay, thank you. And next is city official reports.
All right, well, bear with me while I share my screen here. And as the chair noted, welcome to the first meeting in January. All right, well, we don't have any planned items for February, the upcoming meeting, but there will be a potential for a joint study session with the Planning and Transportation Commission regarding that Coverly project or the reimagining of that site. And as detailed in the packet, there is the 2026 meeting schedule, noted the planned absences of the Vice Chair Adcock as well as Board Member Hirsch. If there are any planned absences, please direct that to my attention or staff's. And I see a hand raised.
I'll jump in here. I'll say I'm going to be out on 6/18.
All right, we will note that for the record.
Actually, same here, 6/18.
See, we claimed it first. Now nobody else is allowed to leave.
All right, as we get closer to that date, maybe we'll reevaluate if we have quorum. And with that, I can entertain any further questions that the board may have.
So for the potential joint meeting, will we get a notification like 1 week or 2 weeks before?
We are checking on a couple of potential dates to make sure that there aren't any other conflicts with other activities, city-sponsored activities. And we will send out a survey, both to the PTC and the ARB, to see if we have sufficient availability for the special meeting date. At this time, I think we're going to start with some Wednesday evenings on a date that's not a regular Planning and Transportation Commission meeting, but since that is different than your usual meeting time, we will be interested to see how feasible that is. So we should be sending a survey out in the next week.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions for the city official report? No? Okay, so we will move on to our first action item. It is a public quasi-judicial project, 2100 to 2400 Gain Road. Recommendation on site and design to demolish 4 existing commercial buildings and construct 65 three-story buildings containing 145 for sale townhome units. 13% of the units would be deemed restricted to low-income households. This is a builder remedy project, and CEQA status is it is exempt from CEQA. Do we have any disclosures?
Yes, I visited the site.
I have nothing to disclose.
Nothing to disclose.
Okay. Next is, next is I will hand over to Steve for staff presentation.
Hello again. Let's take a trip to 2100 Ging Road. All right, let me share my screen here. Just to kind of reorient ourselves here, the project location is on the opposite side of Highway 101 and located off of East Bayshore Road. The zoning is the research office and limited manufacturing with some sub-districts of the Embarcadero and site and design, as well as an automobile dealership combining district. Adjacent land uses are the Baylands Athletic Center, as well as a post office and some office parks. So a little bit a brief overview of the background and process of where we're at today. This was a site and design process that encompassed a SB 330 application that was submitted in July 8th of 2024. Formal application was submitted in December 18th of 2024, and it went to the Architecture Review Board for an early meeting on October 16th. It went to the Planning and Transportation Commission meeting on December 10th, which it received a recommendation to council for its approval with some added conditions that are detailed in the staff report and later discussed in this presentation. It also went to the Parks and Rec Commission on the December 16th meeting for the accompanying parkland improvement ordinance that was recommended for council's approval for the related impacts to trees along the shared property line of the northern portion of the site facing the athletic center. And here we are today at the January 15th meeting looking for the Architectural Review Board's recommendation to council. We're tentatively shooting for a date in March with council for that ultimate or final decision. And just to frame kind of the discussion here, as noted in the last presentation, this is a builder's remedy project that's defined by that Assembly Bill 1893. The project cannot be denied based on an inconsistency with the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan land use, and the city may only require compliance with said objective standards that would apply if the project were proposed on a site that allows the density requested. So for this project, the proposed floor area is 0.97 out of 1 and a 13.2 density that would be permitted in the RM20 zoning district, which is noted in the staff report that residential uses within that RLME district refer to the RM20 district for those zoning standards. This does meet the minimum density, and under the state density bonus law, the applicant may also request some waivers from applicable standards that might either physically prevent the project from being built at the permitted density. So a little bit of a blast from the past from that October 16th meeting. There was about 5 items that was discussed by the board. Those were housing typologies of kind of bumping up that from distinguishing whether it was a townhome loaded from the front or a townhome loaded from the alleyway. The material palette to better align with the Baylands design guidelines and kind of having more muted natural color tones, lighting and concerns with the proximity to the Baylands, grade changes and retaining walls, better understanding of what is occurring on the site and how it interacts with either Ging Road or some of the adjacent sites, as well as those rooftop decks and kind of better understanding of what railing and lighting would look like on those. So I'll just briefly go through these 5, and as detailed in the staff report, the applicant has made efforts to address each of these. So housing typologies before, as noted, we had some front-loaded and alley-loaded as well as row townhomes, and the applicant now has introduced a duplex into the mix that will be on the common open space as noted in orange on the screen here. And here are some of those elevations. All right, so moving on to the material palette before, kind of the little piano key, black and white, kind of stark contrast. Moving into a little bit more subdued color palette, and there is the paint chips up at the dais that I believe over on this side, available for viewing. As for lighting, we have plan set pages L51 and L52 that have the photometric analysis, as well as some of those plan cut sheets of the proposed lighting on the sites. And there is an added condition to comply with the dark sky lighting ordinance that's detailed in that attachment B. Moving on to grade changes and retaining walls, I pulled a few of those sections here from the plan set, noting the entrance, the emphasis of kind of the placemaking of the site with the need to raise the site for the flood insurance, if you will, and the potential of either 2 to 6 feet of grade in some areas, having a more emphasis on the front and dealing with that. So that has been provided, and those are noted on L1.4 through L1.6 in the plan set to illustrate those proposed grade changes. Just noting here on the entrance drive, and also taking into consideration the stepped effect that was suggested or discussed, should I say, at that last October meeting for those grade changes along Ging Road, rather than having a fully, say, 6-foot retaining wall. Moving on to the rooftop decks, there is a section cut now provided on plan set page A60 that details it will be a parapet wall rather than, say, a railing feature at the top of the structures. And lighting would be limited to the entrances and exits on the rooftop terraces. So consistency with the application findings. Attachment B details that the project meets the said findings for the site and design application, as well as the city's goals and policies for the facilitation of housing development. Not subject to the Architectural Review Board's purview, but also included in that attachment B are the accompanying conditional use permit, investing tentative map. And just to note further, as noted earlier, the project does not necessarily comply with all of the comprehensive plan and municipal code, but it deviates in a manner that's allowed in accordance with state law. And for the CEQA status, we have a completed section 15183, initial study checklist, if you will, that determine the project is consistent with the certified impact report of the 2023 comprehensive plan. On to the recommendation here, it's 2 parts. One, to consider the project exempt from CEQA in accordance with that section 15183, comprehensive plan consistency, as well as recommend approval of the site and design application to the city council based on those findings and subject to the conditions of approval in that draft record of land use action and attachment B. And with that, I can entertain any questions, and the applicant does have a presentation that they would like to make.
Okay, thank you. So before we move to the applicant presentation, do we have questions to the staff? No? Okay, all right. To the applicant, you will have 10 minutes to present, and please state and spell your name for the record. Thank you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
This on? Yes. Good morning. My name is Michael Cohen, C-O-H-E-N. I'm a partner with Strata Investment Group, the developer of this property. Could we go up one slide, please? So as you heard from staff and as we discussed at our study session back in October, the project involves converting an existing 11-acre 4-building office park to 145 for-sale townhomes, targeting first-time home buyers, especially families. Property is zoned for residential use, and the densities and heights that we're proposing, at the densities and heights we're proposing, and was included in the city's housing element. If we go to the next slide, please. Excuse me. We very much focused our design efforts with families and first-time home buyers in mind. All of the homes are 3 or 4 bedrooms, all have 2-car garages and roof decks. Many have side or rear yards. There are 4 different housing types offered, and at a really wide range of sizes, from 1,600 square feet all the way up to 3,000 square feet. And this provides a real diversity of price points for home buyers, as well as livability options. For example, many of the homes have ground floor bedrooms with their own bathrooms to support aging in place or multi-generational families. Similarly, the layout and land use plans are very focused on community building with a mix of central gathering spaces, pocket parks, community gardens, and family play areas, all linked by a network of pedestrian pathways. And all of this is wrapped in a really robust planting program that triples the number of trees on site, significantly increases the number of native species, and includes a very habitat-friendly understory. We've been working very constructively with the city on this project for now about 1.5 years. And as you heard from staff, since our study session, have received unanimous approval from the city's planning and rec park commissions. As you're going to hear shortly from the design team, we took your earlier comments very seriously, and honestly, we're grateful for it. I think what already was a pretty darn good project is now better as a result of that. So with that, let me introduce Darian from Dahlin Architecture to get started.
Thank you. Darian Wagner with Dahlin Group Architecture and Planning, and Darian is D-A-R-I-A-N. Thank you for the great study session that we had at the end of last year. And we were able to take that feedback to heart and really say, how can we make this project better for the community and potential home buyers in this area? So highlighting some of the overall changes that we had made, we added the building, the duplex typology, which we're really excited about. Overall, the tot lot playground and community garden, and the retaining wall as well. Going to that duplex building, addressing that, this massing provides that transition of density and massing from the detached, single-family detached, to the townhouses, and really starts to provide that transition for the housing typology in this community. With your guys' feedback to add that, I'm really excited that this community has a diverse offering for those potential home buyers. So great feedback from you guys. So overall, we place those duplexes to the core of the site, blending and transitioning that density and massing, the space, paying attention to the space between the buildings and what that means from our internal site and external as well. That housing diversity it just provides a really wide range for potential home buyers of detached and attached, and really starts to transition price point and how people are living. You can start to see what that rendering looks like on that central green, and how that opening and space between the buildings really starts to open up as well, and what that means from side yards. Going to the colors, looking at the colors of not as much piano keys, softened the black, softened the white, making it a little bit less stark. and bringing them a little bit closer together. We took those colors. If you go on to the next one as well.
And excuse me, there is a little bit of a lag here, so.
Oh, sorry. Taking those colors and translating them through the, making it cohesive through the site, translating it from the townhouses all the way through, if we go to the duplexes and how that worked in the townhouses and the detached townhouses, running those colors throughout. And then next, the duplexes, incorporating those colors into that new typology. Looking at the detailing that we talked about in our preliminary meeting together, we looked at constructability details and reached out to the manufacturer on some of those trim around the window and addressed that. That'll look really nice from a implementation and construction standpoint. If we go to the next one, you'll start to see as well in the different color scheme where we started to adjust some of those graphical areas of just that little roof overhang on the entry level. And then we also took a sweep around the building to look at the control joints to make sure that it was consistent and visibly cohesive. That's great. Overall, we wanted to add this slide for some added clarity on how those side yards and how different people and the price points are really going to start to be affected of how people utilize those side yards. You'll see here on at least for the detached townhouses where we're going to do shared side use easements for these so they get a bigger, more functional side yard for that open space for healthy living. And the duplexes as well will each have their own 10-foot side yard. So then it'll be a total of 20 feet between those duplex buildings. To address the lighting, we added this to show where that lighting will be, that one light on the roof deck by the door to safely exit at night, and then that it'll be also downlit. That's it architecturally.
Hi, everyone. My name is Daniel Raymond. I'm the landscape architect on the project with the Gazzardo Partnership. So I'll talk a little bit about the landscape and site improvements we made based on the last ARB and the feedback we received. So first is the central green here, the main open space and programmed area. And we got the feedback, which we think actually greatly improved this central park, which is to add more program and a more variety of amenities, including a tot lot and a playground, as well as a community garden. So we added those features. There's 2 different playground areas that could each serve a different age group, as well as a substantial community garden, which would provide opportunities for the residents to grow their own vegetables. And that's also in addition to the amenities that were already there, including a games area, a picnic space with a stage, and then the large lawn for informal gatherings and larger gatherings and picnic space. Next slide, please. That's a view of the central green. And then one of the other adjustments we made is on the Gang Road frontage related to the grade change and the retaining wall. So rather than having one tall wall, we were able to study the grading and break that up into 2 terraced walls.
Sorry to interrupt. Your time is up, so we'll wrap it up quickly.
Sure.
Thank you.
So we terraced the wall along the frontage, softening that edge with more planting and wrapping that landscape character around into the entry drive. Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you very much for your presentation. And do we have any public comments for this project?
Yes, through the chair at the moment, we have received one public comment card. And if there's any members on Zoom that would like to participate in public comment, I would like to invite them to raise their hand so that I can note them for the record. So at the moment, I would like to invite our first public commenter, Herb B.
Okay. Hi to our public. So you will have 3 minutes to speak. Please state and spell your name, please.
Herb Borock, Herb, Borock, exactly as it's written on the card I submitted. I see only 3 members of the board present on a board which has a quorum of 4. I heard a 4th voice saying the person was here. However, the agenda and public notice of the meeting did not disclose that anyone would be participating by teleconference. And the person, whoever it is, or maybe is invisible, didn't say.
Just want
the
to
reason.
clarify, we have a quorum today.
Who's the 4th person?
No, we have 5 in total, so,
No, it's for making decisions of a board, it's a quorum of the entire membership.
Through the chair, if I could interrupt, and if we can pause his time for a moment, just to provide clarity, we have 3 of 5 members in chambers who are participating today. We do have a 4th member who joined via Zoom. However, because we were not able to post that ahead of the meeting, he will not be able to participate, just listen in. All right.
Right.
But we do have a quorum by having 3 of 5 in chambers here to participate. Thank you, Sam. If you could continue his time.
thank you, Jennifer.
Okay, I disagree with that. Secondly, in terms of consistency with the plan, section 183 says that it may be possible for site-specific questions that are different than what's been covered. It may be necessary to examine whether there are project-specific significant effects which are particular to the project. I was the first person to mention the airport influence area. The applicant has said he has done everything the staff has asked him to do, but apparently they haven't told him about the airport influence area, because in the comprehensive plan since 2009, there has been a policy and explanatory text program to the effect of complying with those things. A couple of them are mentioned in the staff report, the navigation easement and deed restrictions to put on the tentative map, but you actually need the language from the land use, comprehensive land use plan for the Palo Alto Airport, so it is clear that the applicant knows that every time he sells one of these units, that it's going to be a deed restriction on it, that the purchaser knows that they can be affected by noise from the airport, and due to airport growth, it's going to get worse. In addition to that, there's been nothing to evaluate project-specific effects of earthquake. There are all-cost maps which show the extent of liquefaction and how that would occur on the site. And there's also the necessity, perhaps, of bolting to the foundation and bracing the building. Height limitation was mentioned, but it didn't indicate what that total height is, and the fact that it includes the floodplain and all which are addition. Finally, for some projects, I don't know which ones in the airport, there are building construction standards to protect from noise, and there's no indication of that. And the sea level rise as well.
Thank you. That concludes your time.
Thank you.
Our next speaker is Star T. Star, you may now speak.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I have not examined this project other than seeing this really beautiful presentation, and it's very impressive, and I think it will be highly desirable. at this location. I do want to support Herb Borak, who is frankly just a fabulous resource for our city to catch some very detailed elements of any proposal. And I hope you listen to his comments and address them as best you can. Thank you very much.
Thank you for your comments. Do we have any others?
To the chair, I have not received any other requests to speak on Zoom and no other public comment cards.
Okay, thank you. And next will be our applicant rebuttal. You will have 10 minutes if you want to respond to any public comments.
Yes, again, for the record, Michael Cohen, I'll be very quick. I just did want to note for the record that the proximity to the airport was analyzed under CEQA. We've worked very closely with city staff, including the city attorney's office on this. The form of the aviation easement is a form that is drafted by the county. We accepted it as is. And I would say, even though it wasn't legally required, we have met with the airport board. We had very productive meetings with them. We shared the language of the aviation easement. We shared the fact that we are meeting all the building code requirements given the relative adjacency to the airport for the project. Thank you.
Thank you. So do we have any questions to the applicant or to the staff at this moment?
I do. I'm going to start by sort of looking at staff and seeing if there's any commentary in response to the Herb's comments with, or if there's anything there that you guys wanted to input or respond to.
I don't think I'm going to be able to join in the talk here.
Hi, David.
Oh, you do hear me.
We can hear you when you unmute yourself, yeah.
Yeah, unfortunately, because we didn't get notice of his location and the fact that he was going to be participating remotely in time to post that ahead of time as required by state law, unfortunately, he won't be able to participate. He can listen in, but should
keep
not
his
be.
mute button on?
Exactly.
Well, it's nice to see you, David. All right, so to staff, if there's anything that you guys wanted to input at this time, I just wanted to sort of see if you guys had any comments on that, or otherwise I'll dive into my questions to the applicant.
And I'm being muted at some point here, but can you hear me now?
We can hear you, but yeah, I think
Yeah,
you're gonna have to
Steve-
stay muted. We're not supposed to hear you, David.
I just want to say that, Stephen, I tried to contact you in order to be able to.
I'm sorry, David, Jennifer Armour, Assistant Director. I'm going to have to cut you off. Just, we want to make sure we're sticking with procedures. If you'd like to follow up afterwards, I think we should move him to participant. I do apologize.
Thank you.
And to address Board Member Rosenberg's comment or question, should I say, I believe the applicant aptly addressed that with the inclusion of the navigation easement.
Perfect.
The project has been analyzed with the airport influence area and with normal construction techniques. The sound attenuation that would be from the airport shouldn't affect residents. And it's at levels that would be acceptable, so.
So for the record, basically, is everything that's been commented on has been responded to, and that the town feels comfortable with everything that's moving forward as is? Okay, great.
In short, yes.
Perfect, that's what I need to know. Thank you very much. To the applicant, if you don't mind, I'll ask you just a couple short, quick questions here. It looks like on, now I just lost my page. On one of the sheets, the early ones, on sheet 8.6, there is a slight existing, what it looks like, connection from East Bay Shore to that bottom swing of the triangle. Is that something you guys are going to be able to maintain? Is there a goal to maintain that so that there's multiple ingress and egress to this community? Or is it really, are you going to have to abandon that?
No, the goal is to maintain that.
Perfect, okay, great, that's good news. And I understand that it's not completely on your property, not completely within your control, but I think that having that maintained would be excellent. Okay. Looking at the duplexes, just out of pure curiosity, if somebody were to buy two side by side, would they be allowed to or able to connect them internally? Or is there going to be a provision to prevent that?
I haven't thought about it.
Okay, no problem.
Literally, I mean, I would say I'd go to the planning department and ask them, is that allowed? I don't know if that's allowed. Honestly, the way these units are designed, I don't think it makes a ton of sense to do
Right.
that. They're very intentional as individual homes. In
for thought, I
theory,
guess.
we could create a deed restriction that would prohibit that if that was important for the city to ensure the number of units involved.
Okay.
I can also add that from a building code standpoint, that these will be considered two-family dwellings. And so if a individual wanted to do that, they would have to submit a permit to change this from a two-family dwelling to a single-family detached home. And so there would be, from a building code standpoint and permit standpoint, it will be a two-family dwelling. So they would have to go through measures to do that.
Okay, so more or less would be prevented in theory, unless there was somebody that really was gung-ho about this and tried to maneuver their way through the city with that. Okay.
Yes.
Great. Happy to understand that. Thank you. On sheet 8.43, unit 21, it's showing the dotted in bathroom on that floor, on that ground floor. It's also showing it's ADA accessible with the circular space in it. From my understanding, we have the new age in place requirements. Is this one exempt for some reason? Is this, because it looks like you guys are showing it as the potential to add a bathroom if necessary, but I'm sort of curious how that's actually going to play out in real life, if that's required to have the bathroom for age in place purposes, and if that's also the case, is it required to have the bathroom as well? Sheet A.43, unit 21, and it's the one with the dashed-in bathroom on the ground
Bear
floor.
with us while we pull that up on the screen.
Not a problem. Take your time. I've only got one more question after this, so this is not taking
I
too
will
long.
defer to staff on this, but
Sure.
what was relayed to me is the requirement is for adaptable units, the adaptable bathroom facility.
Yeah, and at the time that you guys submitted, that age in place was not a firm requirement. But again, I want to make sure that we're covering all the bases here.
Yeah, but that's our understanding.
Okay.
It's a building code requirement, but I think he is correct that I believe it has to be adaptable, not.
Adaptable
yeah.
to a first floor. But then if that's the case, then that bathroom should, in theory, have a shower, and there should be a space for a bedroom. Is that correct?
No.
Okay, go ahead.
No.
Go ahead.
Yeah, so aging in place will need to cover any bathrooms that are on the ground floor unit.
No bedrooms,
This
though.
is dash in for the 10% of units for the townhouses that do need to be adaptable, and the requirements in the clear area space needed for that bathroom on the ground floor, just for those 10% of townhouse units.
But again, from my understanding with the age in place requirement, you actually had to have a shower as well.
The adaptable units are different than the aging in place.
Got it, understood, thank you for that. Okay. And then final question is in regards to something that Mr. Herb brought up is noise mitigation. Now, again, I had a friend that lived literally on the train tracks, and we all know how noisy those are, and there's no noise mitigation required for that. Airports are a little bit different. They have slightly different requirements to live near them. Do you guys have any triple pane windows? Is there any area of concern that would be slightly more noisy or less noisy? Also, those golf courses can get a little rowdy. So I'm just curious if there is any sort of noise mitigation that's going to be part of the construction. Are you doing any triple pane windows, any sound attenuation walls, anything like that we can be privy to?
Yeah, there are very specific building code directions that we're complying with around sound attenuation. The interesting thing from what we learned through the CEQA process is the greater noise impacts are from the freeway.
Makes sense, okay.
Part of the analysis that we did was looking at the frequency of flights, the height, the size of the planes, and their takeoff and landing patterns. All of that have been, I do not believe we're triple painting windows, but there are a variety of just building code requirements to meet the sound attenuation levels, which are literally required as a matter of law.
Great. And then a final question is between same sort of thread of thought. Between the duplex, is that going to be a sound attenuation wall? It looks like a full separate party wall with two walls, so there's going to be full sound attenuation between that as well?
Correct.
Okay, thanks very much. That's all my questions.
Thank you for your questions. You have any question?
So I have a question. There was a comment in the previous meeting. It didn't make it into the motion, but we spoke about topologies and potentially having also condos on the property. And we were specifically talking about units that are marked 50, 51, 52, 53, like in that, on the left side of the property. I guess that would be the western side of the property. And at that time, you said on this side of the freeway, it's financially difficult to market condos, and you had that experience in some other location. But you said you would, think about it. So I'm just curious, have you, put more thought into it, or if you could say more about that?
Yes, we did, and I want to be clear, I don't think it's just being on the east side of the 101 that is really the issue here. It's incredibly layered, and if I'm correct, the prior comment was really, could we do a for-rent multifamily building, 40 or 30 to 50 units at that site? And there are a bunch of reasons why it's not feasible for us in this project. Part of it is the soil conditions. If you surface park that, you would lose a ton of units. And to go subgrade parking here would be financially infeasible given the size of that building and the amount of subterranean parking that you'd have to do. Probably more, or at least as importantly. And when we submitted this application, as we've been going through this process for the last year and a half, we're focused on building a first-time home buyer for sale community. And both from a financing perspective, debt, equity, everything, you have different pools of financing that'll go to a multifamily project, for example, than a for sale product. So I don't know if I've perfectly answered. There's a variety of reasons that we believe that this is the right mix and the right housing typology for this location. And it would literally not only send us back to square one, but I don't think it's feasible for us to drop a multifamily building in the middle of a community like this. I look forward to, in a year and a half, we've got another project coming in Palo Alto that has different site characteristics, has a different ability to create severability where you could finance one separately from the other, and we are planning to do some towns and some multifamily. But this is not the location for that, but I want to be clear, it's not entirely a function of just being east of 101. It's much more nuanced than that.
Can I ask you a follow-up question? Is there, maybe something with this project, from a permitting standpoint, that you would want to trade for being able to create, this kind of a topology? For example, you mentioned about the parking. So also in this area, you have to fill. So how about some solution where you don't have to fill in that area?
Yeah.
Or building height requirements, or any other kind of waiver where you would say, oh, if we are able to do that, then I can trade. We can trade off the financial downside.
Yeah. I think the short answer is no. Again, even before we started working with city staff on this project, say 2 years ago, we were evaluating all of those issues. One of the things that we were focused on is we didn't think this is a site for a giant tower. I mean, yes, technically this is a builder's remedy site, but we felt really strongly about being consistent with the zoning, being consistent with design standards, being smack in the middle of the density requirements associated with that, and the proximity to the Baylands. There were all of these factors that went in, but I would say absolutely unequivocally at this stage, we're hopefully to be in a position to actually deliver housing of this type in the city of Palo Alto. I think we feel very comfortable with what we've got here, and it represents the right set of trade-offs.
Okay, thank you. I do have a couple of minor questions to the architect. So if we can pull up the elevation, the detached home elevations. So I noticed there are small areas of like the shallow slope roof. Is it on purpose instead of all the other areas you do either flat roof or the parapet wall?
Which sheet?
For example, A9, it happened at a couple of homes, like detached homes and the duplex.
Bear with me while I pull that up.
Sure.
And it's sheet number L.9, A.9.
8.9, yeah.
All right. Coming right up.
Thank you.
I'm trying to find the shallow flat roofs there on, if it's sloped or truly flat, is that the question?
Right, but on the elevations, it seems like you can see you did it on purpose, so I want to know how, like, this part, like this dark line here?
Like on the very top on the roof deck up there?
Wait a minute. Yeah, let me find my pen. So it's here. And
There you go, Stephen, thank you.
Yeah.
Stay put.
So those small roofs, if you're seeing that slight slope to it, that's going to be, all of these flat roofs are not going to be completely flat. They're going to have probably a 1/4 inch to 1/2 inch per foot slope just for water to shed off of it per building code. They can't be like a completely zero slope. So all you're seeing in here is just that slight slope that you're going to end up seeing for those roofs to shed water.
so those are actually the only areas that you can see the slope on the elevations. All the other areas, the other typology, it's either parapet wall or flat roof, right? And also, how do you drain it? Will it just be dripping on the edge?
There'll probably be a drip edge. You may also see it from a straight-on elevation. When you're
Okay.
actually experiencing it in person, you're probably going to see the edge of that flat roof and never going to actually see the slope of it. So there is a slight nuance of looking at it on a straight elevation versus in person for perspective.
Gotcha. I think, it makes sense, but it's also good to have the detail in the future. And also another question is on the townhomes, the townhouse, it seems like the parapet wall has 3 different heights. I'm looking at sheet A20, 8.22. Yeah, here it is. If you could zoom up a little bit. And can we show both elevations, the upper one? Yeah, okay, thank you. If we look at the parapet wall, it seems like there are 3 steps. So is it on purpose? And how do you detail the transition area at the corner, like the different heights?
Part of that is to transition where the parapet walls are kind of coming in and dying in. The top of that parapet wall will have coping that's going through all of it, so the detailing will still look really nice and consistent throughout there. And part of it is just so it doesn't feel like a very flat line at the top of the building, and so there's a little bit of visual interest and movement.
Okay, because on the plan, on the roof plan, there is basically 2 areas. One is the open space, the roof garden, and the other is for the solar panel. But you have like 3 different heights for the parapet wall, right?
It likely varies for visual interest on the face of
Okay.
the building, and then when you get to the roof deck area, for code for a guard height, yes.
Okay. All right, thank you. I don't have any other questions. Any of you? Kendra, you have any? Okay, then we will close the public comments, public portion of the meeting and move on to ARB internal discussion. Kendra, you want to speak first, or who want to start?
Sure, I'll go ahead. It's an interesting thing that we sort of have been running into a couple of times here when we have sites that are sort of extra large in their space, that we do value the mix of typology. Now, we've sort of painted ourselves into somewhat of a corner here, I think, because there's a time and a place for each one of these things. And I think you guys have actually done a really commendable job about getting something to work and really creating a space that's going to feel like a community, right? And I think that that's kind of important. There's going to be a lot of families here. There's going to be, potential for some elderly people to be living here as well. And while we would appreciate the apartment complex, and I do agree with Board Member Joe Jarth on that's something that we have asked for previously, and that's something that we do try and strive for. I think that, especially your argument about the sizing of the items, of the units, it's persuasive, right? And it's one of those where if you've got someone who can afford a 1,600 square foot property versus a 3,000 square foot property, that's a pretty big difference in sort of pricing. I think that this really, my biggest hats off here is that you really are going to create a sense of community in this space, and I do appreciate that. I admit that the exterior materials do leave me a little bit wanting. You guys have done a great job of updating things per our requests, things like that, but just overall, I'm like, it's another set of boxes with some pretty colors, right? But again, I understand that that's why it has to, it's part of the financing, it's part of getting things done quickly, and it's moving things forward. So no actual major complaints other than it's a little bit sleepy is probably the way that I would pose it. But I think they're going to be beautiful, and I think it's going to be it's very well thought out. And also, hats off for the floor plans. I'm always a sort of a stickler on the floor plans of these spaces. You guys have created some really welcoming spaces inside these homes. Again, my one concern is that Unit 21 with the no bathroom on the ground floor, just as an age-in-place item. But again, if we are following code, there's no actual complaint here, just sort of food for thought. I do really appreciate the fact that you have most of your units have a full bedroom and full bathroom on the ground floor. It's huge. Other than that, I'm feeling very comfortable with this project. I do appreciate the 2 access points as well. I think that's going to be sort of critical with something of this size. Gosh forbid, in case of an emergency, you'd want to be able to have multiple egress points. And other than that, I think that's all my comments for now. So thanks very much. And we appreciate you guys taking what we say to heart. And, it's always, we're on both sides of this table. I think every one of us works on both sides of this table here. So we understand how frustrating this process can be. And that sometimes you're like, oh my gosh, we're doing a redesign. But I do feel like you really heard our comments and you took them to heart. And we do appreciate that. So thanks very much.
Board Member Trujillo?
I agree with everything that Board Member Rosenberg said. I appreciate that you took our requests and implemented them. I liked the great changes in retaining walls especially. I think that's a big improvement. And I agree about the color scheme. I think you made the colors better. But the whole property looks a little, boxy, and instead of black and white, now we are shades of gray. So, but that's, I think that's a small thing. I think my biggest, problem with this project is because it's a large development, and it's almost like a town, in itself. So I think when we think about a place like, when we are thinking about smaller projects, let's say along El Camino or somewhere, because, okay, this lot is townhome, this one is multifamily, this one is whatever. That topologies can be done almost on a lot-by-lot basis.
Yeah, they're doing better.
Versus in this project, because it's so big, I feel, we have to create that variety of topologies on the, within the project. And, you did include, different topologies, but it's kind of, different versions of the same. And even when I just look at the, just aesthetically, visually, when I look at the, the overall site plan, it looks like kind of boxes of sardines, next to each other. And I think that's the kind of a cityscape that we would like to avoid. And, I think you have the challenge that you have a very large lot, and I think if you do, too much of the same in the same lot, it becomes monotonous, and there's not enough variety in the, in the residents. So I think from a general city planning, standpoint, I feel it's not ideal. So I think that's the big shortfall of this project. And I understand it's a builder's remedy, project, and we cannot, stop you, from doing it. And PTC looked at it, and they like it. So I think you have a lot of wind in your sails, but I think, we are here at the Architectural Review Board, and I feel, I think it's really hard for me to put my stamp on it, because I think from a city planning, from an architectural planning standpoint, like, this is an example of what we don't want.
All right, thank you for your comments. I think generally speaking, I'm in favor of this project, and I think the applicant did a great job from the site plan to some of the detail, the elevation design, the material choose. I think the site plan is quite successful, and the circulation and also the parking space you provided for this space for both the tenants here and the guest parking, I think it's really excellent. And I do appreciate that even though this is a builder remedy project, you don't go to this extreme and provide family-oriented larger units in town. And I think it's quite successful. And also I do appreciate that you listen to our comments and address the points that we brought up last time. And I think the step retaining wall helps to softening the street front, and also it appears to be more welcoming and inviting to the public. And also the open space, you added a variety of amenities and activities to the people who will live here, especially for the younger families. You provided toddler play area and also the playground. Do appreciate it, and also community gardens. I think it's quite a welcoming community, and I think it's a good addition to the town, especially on the other side of the highway. Thank you so much. So do we have a motion?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and make a motion. I'm going to recommend approval of the site and design application to the city council with the rest of the languages you guys have provided in the city report. So to read that off, application to the city council based on findings and subject to conditions of approval in the draft record and land use action RLUA in attachment B.
I will second.
Board Member Rosenberg?
Yes.
Board Member George.
Yes.
Chair Chen?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Congratulations.
Congratulations, and we look forward to seeing the project built.
Yeah,
so.
can't wait. Yeah, so now it's 9:30. Can we take a short break? And we will come back at 9:40. Thank you. Okay. So we will move on to our second action item today. It is a public hearing quasi judicial 3781 El Camino Real recommendation on the major architectural review application to demolish commercial and residential buildings located at 3727 to 3737 and 3773 and 3783 El Camino Real, 378 to 400 Mainline Court, and 388 Kirtner Avenue, and to construct a 7-story multifamily residential housing development projects with 183 units, 13% of which would be provided at a rate affordable to low income. This project is also a builder remedy project, and it is exempt from CEQA under AB 130. Do we have any disclosures?
Yes, I visited the site.
Me too. I visited the site yesterday.
I visited the site as well.
Okay, thank you. And next, we will move on to staff presentation.
All right, well, there's lots of addresses at this project site, but for the sake of the staff report and this presentation, it is 3781 El Camino Real. So to orient ourselves a little bit about that project location, it is on the corner of Kirtner Avenue and its intersection with El Camino Real. There are 4 assessor parcels on the project site, of which there's 2 zoning districts. So that would be the neighborhood commercial CN district, as well as the multifamily residence district RM30 for the rear of the property. Adjacent land uses are commercial and residential uses, with residential uses to the north, with a recently developed building, one that received the Architecture Review Board's award, 2025 Design Award, as well as some residential buildings, multifamily, at the rear of the property. So how did we get here today? Back in February in 2024, a SB 330 application was submitted. In 2025, on June 10th, a major ARB application was submitted. Following that, in September 22nd of 2025, the applicant requested consideration under AB Assembly Bill 130. And that was evaluated and determined that the project is consistent with those requirements. January 15th, here we are today at the Architectural Review Board, and following the recommendation, we are shooting for a tentative March date at Council. So a little bit about the project overview. The staff report goes into a lot more detail than what's on these few bullet points on the screen here, but it would demolish approximately 10,100 square feet of commercial floor area across those 2 front parcels. The 2 rear parcels have those 14 existing residential units addressed at Madeline Court. The building would be 7 stories high, 83 feet tall, a total of 183 units. A little breakdown of those units are detailed on the screen, of which 23 would be below market rate units, meeting that 13% minimum requirement for that builder's remedy and affordability requirements. 215 parking spaces would be provided, 183 would be EV, and 36 would be tandem out of that 215 spaces. Plan set page 2 details a little bit more of those parking requirements, as well as the breakdown of those units. 183 bike spaces long-term would be provided, 18 short-term bike spaces. And as for some additional items for consideration, there are some tree removals on the site, as well as a certificate of compliance for the merging of those 4 parcels. To frame the discussion with the state law constraints, this is a builder's remedy project as defined by that Assembly Bill 1893, just as the last project was that went before the board. The project may not be denied based on an inconsistency with the zoning code or comprehensive plan land use, and the city may only require compliance with objective standards that would, say, apply on the project site that would allow the density requested. So, as proposed, the project does comply with those state law constraints, and under the state density bonus law, there are allowed waivers, as well as some concessions, if you will, for the project to be built at that permitted density. So a little bit of a brief overview of some of the project plans. Here is a site plan of the site, noting the vehicular access off Kirtner Avenue on the southern portion of the site, going through some of these floor plans here. So floor 1 would be here with a co-working space and kind of a pet spa, the residential amenities, if you will, on the front facing El Camino Real, with that first floor of the parking garage located towards the rear. Moving on to floor 2, a 2-story open space for a portion of that residential amenities area, as well as the second level of the parking garage. Floor 3 is where we get into the podium space of some of that open space requirements, noting also a little bit of a step back towards the rear of the property in that northern portion based on the residential or sensitivity towards those residential uses in the rear. And that fluctuates anywhere from 5 to 10 feet. That would be set back from the additional setback of the building. Moving on to floor plan 4. And 5. And 6. 7 with a open space located towards the intersection of Kirtner and El Camino, and the roof plan. So here is a northern elevation of the project site, noting some recesses as well as some material changes from that first floor garage space, first and second floor, should I say, garage space going up to the residential units up at the upper floors. The eastern elevation. And then moving on to the Kirtner Avenue, the main entrance, if you will, towards that corner of El Camino on the southern elevation. Noting that 7th floor amenity space, as well as the 2-story residential amenity space at the first floor. And onto the El Camino Real elevation, the western elevation, and the retaining of those existing street trees along that elevation as well. And here is a rendering from the El Camino Real center of the road, if you will, looking south and looking at that corner of Kirtner and El Camino Real, that intersection, a rendering of that structure. So to guide the discussion, this is, as noted before, a builder's remedy project. The project may not be denied based on an inconsistency with the zoning ordinance or the comprehensive plan. Some of those inconsistencies are noted in attachment D and F in the packet. The project is afforded waivers and concessions based on its status from those applicable standards, and for informational purposes only, those conformance standards or development standards, if you will, the El Camino Real focus area, objective design standards, as well as the El Camino Real design guidelines are detailed in those attachments D and F for the project. As for CEQA status, the city is evaluating, or should I say evaluated, the project for its eligibility under AB 130 and found it to be eligible. AB 130 exempts housing infill projects that meet certain criteria. It also sets strict timelines for the city's review and decision-making following completion of tribal consultation. So some draft conditions are included in the packet Those reflect standard conditions. Those don't necessarily reflect the final conditions of approval to address any potential impacts to archaeological or tribal cultural resources. Those are expected to be modified prior to council's decision. Tribal consultation is at the near end. It is expected to be completed this month. And those conditions of approval for those tribal and archaeological resources would be incorporated prior to that council's decision. So just kind of at the tail end before making the packet. So unfortunately, we were unable to have that language available for today's discussion. As for the recommendation, staff would recommend that the Architectural Review Board recommend City Council approve the project based on the findings in Attachment B and those conditions of approval in Attachment C, barring that the addition of those cultural and tribal resources conditions would be updated with the language that would be agreed upon from those consulting tribes. And with that, I can entertain any questions, and the applicant does have a presentation.
Okay, thank you. Do we have any questions to the staff?
I do. Tribal Council. We've never had a project since I've been sitting on the board that discussed Tribal Council. So what's different about this one?
So AB 130 implements a strict timeline for review of a project, and part of that allows for a tribal consultation. So following, say, 14 days of receiving a notice of, say, that September date, that the applicant invoked the AB 130, tribal letters were sent out for the tribes recognized by the state, and allowing an opportunity to comment on potential impacts to cultural or archaeological resources with the project. So generally, standard conditions of approval are applied, but this allows for any modification for that language, perhaps a monitor for ground disturbing activities at the initial stages of a project.
Is there any reason to believe that this would be a tribally significant area with the existing buildings on it?
So,
Or is this just like checking a box?
Potentially, yes.
Okay.
Even if there's existing buildings that there still could be tribal cultural resources. The tribes look at, the region and analyze, whether something might have existed long ago in that area. So there are 3 regulations that generally we go by that we need to comply with. So any project that is not exempt from CEQA, so if we're doing like an MND, we do have to send out tribal notification. Anytime there's a comprehensive plan amendment under SB 18, we are required to send it out. And the new regulations under AB 130 require us to send tribal noticing. They don't always request to consult with us. There are some projects that they reviewed and have not, did not have any comments on, for example, the 3001 El Camino project. But there were several projects recently where they did have concerns and expressed concerns, so.
Wow, okay, great, thanks for the education.
Speaking of the timeline, during our pre-ARB meeting, staff mentioned that most likely this project will not come back to the ARB, so this would be the only chance we review the project. Could you please confirm?
Yes, just due to timing under AB 130 and the very tight timelines that we have to comply with, we don't expect to have time for them to make any changes and to come back for another review by the Architectural Review Board, which is why we did notice this as a recommendation, asking for a recommendation.
Okay, thank you. And another thing to the staff is, could you please clarify the setbacks for the lots? Because on the plan set, it seems like the 2 lots are combined, and there is like the front and rear could be different, but on the staff report, it seems like the 2 zonings are still separate.
Right, so the lots would be combined, the 4 parcels, and as for those setbacks, the ranging are from the adjacent lots. So the range that's provided, I believe that's an attachment D, of kind of the zoning consistency and the comparison between those two tables provides that range. And in some areas where it's proposed, it's noted as not applicable because that would be an internal connection, right, of that parcel to the adjacent.
And could you also please refresh us on the requirement for the daylight plan? So especially for the El Camino Real focus area, I think we talk about like when it's adjacent to residential zoning, there would be daylight requirement.
Generally, that is correct. So back to that attachment D, towards the bottom, you'll notice that for the first table, the comparison with that CN district, because it does abut another CN district, it would not be required for a daylight plan for those front parcels, as well as for the rear parcels. It's not applicable due to the zoning that is on it. So that RM30 or those higher density zoning districts. So while there are residential uses at the rear of the property, it's meeting the requirements in the code, as well as that expanded, if you will, those housing incentives for the El Camino Real focus area and what that would imply.
And also just a quick question, what's the final zoning of the single parcel once it's all combined?
So it would be split zoning. The applicant is not requesting a zone change for the project site, just a merging of the parcels itself. And that, while it's interesting, it isn't a requirement for a rezoning of the project site for the development.
Okay, thank you. And we will move on to applicant presentation. So you will have 10 minutes, and please state and spell your name for the record, please.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marissa Riley, M-A-R-I-S-S-A-R-E-I-L-L-Y. Good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for providing us the opportunity to speak with you about 3781 El Camino Real. We're really excited to show you this housing proposal. As Stephen mentioned, this isn't a typical entitlement process. I know that it's shortened and sped up a bit, but we hope that you'll see we've taken a lot of care to create a project that is designed thoughtfully and it's contextually sensitive and really realizes the vision, the city's vision for the future of El Camino Real. I'm going to begin with our project team. This is the same team that we presented with last month at 3606 El Camino Real. We're working with BD Architecture, the Gazzardo Partnership, and Kieran Wright, all local, respected Bay Area firms together, have over 153 years of Bay Area experience. Saris Regis Group of Northern California is the group I work for. We're a developer also locally based in San Mateo. And then the property owners, the Giovanotto family, who have lived in Palo Alto for decades and have been stewards of this property for over 25 years. I'll begin with the community benefits, as that's really the core of this project. It's a meaningful step towards providing housing in Palo Alto, 183 units, including 23 affordable units. This would support Palo Alto's RHNA housing commitments in the, as noted in the housing element. It also provides a broad range of unit types from studios all the way up to family-friendly 3-bedroom units. And it really just realizes the Palo Alto's vision, successful El Camino Real focus area. So with the existing site conditions, this project is directly adjacent to Wilton Court, which is an affordable multifamily building. It's also proximate to single-family housing. It's located directly on El Camino Real, giving it excellent access to multiple bus lines, in addition to there being the new bike lane that's right along El Camino Real. And then here's our existing pedestrian experience, which, leaves something to be desired. Right now, there's, 1.5-story older commercial buildings along El Camino, and then in the back of the property, there are, older kind of cottage-style apartments. So with all of that context in mind, I'm going to hand it over to Nathan from BD Architecture. He's the project architect.
Hi, everyone. Few less of you here than last time I was here. Nathan Simpson, Nathan Simpson, just like the cartoon. Jumping to the next screen here, you'll see some updated renderings of the project, just a little bit crisper than what you've seen. What we are showing is a contemporary building with some timeless elements to it, including materiality, which is brick and plaster. You can see the windows are proportionally traditional. They're symmetrical. The corner windows are accents on the upper floors, mainly to create some difference in the building, so it's not all repetitive. And the overall design being contemporary, it does have a little bit of a timeless feel, a little bit of a urban feel, and then we've been introducing a new element on this project to make it a little softer, a little bit more natural, which is a wood soffit accent. The wood soffit accent is at all the amenity spaces. So the corner of the building has a dark mass at the 3rd and 4th floor. That's our amenity fitness center. All along that has a wood accent along the underside, and then at the top of the building, there's also that same wood accent at the large canopy covering the roof deck. Looking at the materiality a little bit, we are proposing a brick and plaster building. As mentioned, a wood-like material that would be on all the soffits. This materiality would also be on the private decks facing El Camino Real. This material is mostly limited to the undersides of buildings, so when you look at the building in elevation, it will look very much black and white with just the brick accents. And then how you would actually experience the building, which would be from pedestrian level or going by on the street in perspective, you would see the wood accents, which would give the building its softer aesthetic. As mentioned, we are stepping back from our neighbors with a 10-foot setback all the way around on floors 1 and 2. Along Kirtner, you're going to see a little bit wider of a setback. We're using that for a little bit of move-in staging and utilities, tucking that in out of sight for most people, including off of El Camino Real. The two highlighted areas you see in the red are the additional setbacks at the 3rd floor. These are large decks for those 3rd floor units. Right now they are all tile, just pavers for those people to pretty much put whatever they'd like out there. Internally, we have discussed potentially adding in some extra planting just to create more buffer with our neighbors. And then also along Kirtner Avenue, which is where a lot of the neighbors will see, and also our front door, it's also south exposure, is our courtyard, which creates a large mass break on the building, and also gives our residents a very amenitized with a lot of different amenities, from barbecues to 4 different spas. What we're envisioning is different heats and temperatures for the spas as the amenity for the building. And again, this is south facing, so lots of sun, and it provides that mass break for the neighbors. And then also at the corner of the building in that blue mass, that's our fitness center. It's a double height space. So this building is envisioned to be, it has a lot of a wellness factor to it with the wood accents around, and also having this indoor-outdoor fitness center space with spas. Sorry, I'm kind of moving stuff around a little bit because I'm seeing I got boxes on my screen. As mentioned, we are watching the pedestrian experience, and this is the main corner of the building. This is our entrance. It's tucked back off of El Camino a little bit just to get pedestrians away from the busy intersection. And the large storefront windows, these are 12-foot windows plus additional windows above them. So you're looking at probably about 16 to 18 foot of glazing along the top at the corner of this building. All of the parking along El Camino Real is hidden by this. We're doing the same thing as we did on the other project, which is double height amenity space along El Camino Real, which hides the parking. And then the building is stepped back, similar to the other project, giving it a substantial foundation made in brick. And then along that whole frontage is all of our amenity spaces, aside from that third floor fitness center. The yellow spaces you see are where the pedestrians are really coming into this building as we envision it. So what we're proposing is pulling pedestrians away from the busy intersection of El Camino Real, which also has the bike lane, which will be a lot of interactions and overlap of activity. And we're bringing the main people into the lobby here at the corner. The light blue area is our pickup drop-off zone. And then we've also considered our trash circulation, move-ins, and staging for all that. So as mentioned, we have a little bit of a wider setback on the side of the building along Kirtner with our neighbor. That's where we'll have move-ins, and we can do staging for trash, keeping it pretty clean. And while I'm on this screen right here, you'll notice the perimeter of the building is planted heavily to help create a planting buffer with our neighbors. But also, we're envisioning this space to be gated, so there is a dog run. This tan area right here is a dog run. And then all the way around the building would be gated, so we could actually have that as a dog walk, or pedestrians could just walk through there. But it's also used for fire and life safety, so we do need that setback. The building is also sustainable in a lot of different ways, from all electric. It'll have a solar-equipped roof, EV charging, enhanced energy and water efficiency on all the appliances, stormwater treatment. I'll come back to the plants. Bike parking, as we mentioned, a lot of bus lines are around, and by keeping the building out of the ground, not putting the garage in the basement, we've actually reduced the building's carbon footprint substantially. Going to the material planting list, you can see the pet area there up in the upper right, the bikes, and a lot of paving. So we'll be doing accent pavers to make it a nice pedestrian experience. And then we'll also be using native and drought-tolerant plants. These plants are very similar to what we're using down the street. So we're creating a common thread along El Camino Real while also, paying attention to our local environment. And then with the 30 seconds I have left, I'll go through a few other things. As mentioned, we are very much in alignment with the focus area group. We're 100% housing. We're below the FAR limit. The building scale and density is within it's in alignment. We exceed the parking requirements. We provide affordable housing. We're shielding the parking from ECR so you do not see it, as mentioned. The ground floor has been enhanced with step backs, enhanced materials, storefronts, and active frontages. And there's a lot of facade variation. Thank you. Hit that down to 10 minutes.
Thank you very much. So do we have any public comments for this project?
To the chair, I've received one public comment on Zoom. And I invite anyone else, if they'd like to speak, to raise their hand so that I am aware. Our first speaker is Charlie. Charlie, you may now speak.
Charlie, you will have 3 minutes to speak, and please state and spell your name for the records. Thank you.
Hi, my name is Charles Santori. That's CharlesSantori. And so I live along Kirtner Avenue, and so I have one question about parking. And I can say that most of the residents here have 2 cars, and it looks like there's just more than parking in this structure for 1 car. So are there going to be 100 extra cars that have to be parked along Kirtner Avenue? And if you live here, you can see that it's already very full in terms of parking. So I think that's going to be one difficulty for the current residents. Another question is about the intersection with Kirtner and El Camino that already tends to get backed up. And I think if I understood correctly from the plans, the exit from the parking structure is along Kirtner near El Camino. So I think there's going to be a problem with people trying to get in and out of the parking structure, especially during rush hour. And then the third question is, although I saw in the plans, it showed large windows on the front. I just want to clarify that there isn't going to be any new commercial space, correct? We're just going to lose the restaurants. Like, for example, there's a restaurant currently on the corner that many people here like. and we're going to lose that without any replacement commercial space. Is that correct? So those are all my questions. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
And through the chair, I have not received any other requests to speak on Zoom, and no other cards have been turned in.
Okay, thank you. And next is the applicant rebuttal. You will have 10 minutes if you want to address any public comments.
Sure, I'll just speak quickly to those, and thanks for your comments and questions, Charlie. I'll first speak to parking. We are proposing a little bit above a 1-to-1 ratio, which is a little bit more than the focus area goal. So I think the city has set a standard and we're exceeding that a bit. Understood that parking is tough on Kirtner, so certainly have sympathy for that. In terms of the backup on Kirtner and El Camino Real, I think we're seeing a lot of our buildings that, a lot of people are working from home or have different schedules, or also, using bus, using bike. We are really positioning this building as a multimodal access. And so hoping folks won't just be carpooling by a single occupancy car. And then just confirming, correct, we do not have any retail planned for El Camino. This is 100% housing project. And that's it.
All right, thank you. So next we will move on to the board questions to the applicant or the staff. Who want to start? Kendra, you want to start?
Sure. I have two sort of nitpicky things that I'd like to just sort of understand better. No questions for staff at this time. It's really for the applicant. One is this sort of the area that sort of extrudes into the residential neighborhood area. There's a staircase, but there's no elevator. And I'm curious why there's not that third elevator in place. That feels like something that might want to be there. And even just sort of looking at the upper floor plans if you guys don't mind pulling, Stephen, can I trouble you to pull up any of the floor plans? I'm looking at floor 5, but it's pretty much any of them. If we can just pull that up, I can draw on the screen and explain what I'm looking at.
Any particular floor? Or?
Any of them, doesn't really matter. All right, I'll get my little pen going here. All right, so sort of here you've got your elevator and staircase. Elevator and staircase, just staircase. So the question is, if somebody parks back here on that lower level, they have to, if they want to take an elevator up to their apartment, they have to come all the way down here, get to this elevator, then come all the way back to their apartment here, right? So that's one of those moments where I'm like, I would love to see if you could just finesse an elevator in right in that corner. It's I know it would affect some of that parking on the ground level, but I would really encourage you guys to take a look at just utilizing that corner on the upper levels and seeing if you can get a parking spot in there. Again, it's sort of this open corner on the upper levels anyway, but just figuring out a way to get that done, I think would be actually really invaluable to especially the people living here, because otherwise they're always going from this elevator and then walking all the way there, or they're going from this elevator and walking all the way there, right? Okay, so that's just point one, and I guess it's not so much of a question. It's, I guess, a request to have you guys look at that. My follow-up question would be in regards to the move-in lobby. Can you take us to that floor, please? It's down one more than that. Is that the first floor? Okay. So to my understanding, you're going to back a truck in this zone here. Is that correct?
Right now, we're not anticipating having a driveway right there.
Got it.
We would be curbside loading.
So is there any benefit to potentially doing something here? Oh, sorry. Where you could actually have a curb cut and back a truck in and have a space that way. And then maybe this area becomes the water area and this area becomes that fire pump area, but you actually get a space there. Because again, sort of touching base on what the neighbor's commenting on is that if you have people sort of moving in and out of here, that's going to really create a lot of disruption on Kirtner. And it would be nice, since you've got this whole move-in lobby idea already, is there any reason you couldn't do something where you could actually back a truck off the street and then have the unloading moment there? Any thoughts on that?
Would you like me to start with the elevator first? or-
Please.
Okay, I want to make sure I get everything.
Thank you.
So with the elevator, this building, the buildings are always sized appropriately with the number of elevators to the number of units in the building. So to add a third elevator would almost overprogram this building and create it's a financial hurdle actually for the building. That being said, we do have assigned parking. So one of the ways we overcome the long walking corridors is we assign parking closer to the elevators if it's a further unit. So there's ways for us to mitigate those longer walks for people. And personally, I don't walk a lot anymore since I have a car. I'm okay with people walking a little bit. I'm pretty sure a lot of the tech companies down here do the same things with their parking garages. So I think steps are okay, but we do have ways to mitigate that.
Okay. I am going to sort of counter-argue that in the grand scheme of the cost of this building, one elevator is probably not going to break the bank. So I would argue that back to you.
Yeah.
So understanding that it does cost more financially, and it would create some reprogramming down in these parking spaces, but I'm not buying on the argument that the one elevator would break the bank on this project, so.
Yeah.
But please continue, I appreciate it.
That is fair. I'll let that one go. And then for the move-in lobby, there is a trick on it, which is those move-in trucks generally need about 13 feet of overhead clearance. Our first floor is only 10 feet, maybe 12 feet. With that, you're only going to get about 10 feet of clearance. So if we were to put the move-in back in lobby inside the building, that would actually eliminate parking on the second floor. That being said, we have looked at using the side of the building, that little pull-in area, which does have utilities adjacent to it, so we do have to have access to it. We've explored that. It's technically infeasible just because of the clearances. We would actually lose parking in some additional space in the building to make that wide enough to stage. So we have looked at it. We're going to lose parking if we put it in the building, and we're going to lose more if we put it outside the building on the site.
Would there be a way to even have sort of even an undersized one? So instead of having like a Mack truck per se, you could have at least a U-Haul that would pull off the street, something like that?
You could.
Would that require the 13 feet clearance as well, even if it's a smaller U-Haul?
Yeah, if you look at freeway overpasses, they're usually around 13 feet for all the big trucks, and a lot of those U-Haul trucks are taller. The other problem is if you create something for people to use, they will use it and they don't measure their own trucks, and it will cause damage to the building.
Okay,
So
understood.
it's kind of if you provide it, it needs to be done right.
Got it. All right. On that same note, sort of looking right here in that move-in area, you've got that sort of corner between the move-in lobby and then the elevator space, and I'm sort of imagining someone trying to maneuver a sofa around that corner. Is there any way to sort of widen that distance in that corner there to just, and I see the staircases there, but maybe this wall can actually move into the parking lot just a little bit more to try and open up that dimension there, but also sort of the question is, what is that dimension to begin with?
I think we can definitely explore that. I mean, the plans are always getting massaged, especially in early phases. I will also mention, on the upper floors, it's kind of if you can't get it through that first floor corner right there, you're probably not going to get it into your unit, and you're not going to get it through a 6-foot wide corridor up above.
That's a fair point.
So we kind of use that as the pinch point to keep the corridors up above from getting damaged.
All right, I'll buy off on that. Okay. Did I have any other questions? I don't have any other questions at the moment, so I might chime back in a minute, though. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you. So I do have a couple of questions also on the site plan, the circulation. So if you could pull up the ground floor plan again. So for the first, could you please clarify where the short-term bicycle parking is?
Off the top of my head, I don't remember where that is.
It's the corner by the lobby.
Awesome, thank you. Corner by the lobby.
Okay, because per staff report, you provided.
There we go.
Okay, there are 18 short-term parking. Okay.
So they're right by the front door.
Okay, thank you. And also, yeah, if we zoom in here, just right here, and I want to know for the distance here, by code, do we need to have like 8 feet wide clearance there to keep the walkway clear? Because you can see the door swing is just like in the way.
So 8 feet is the objective standard. I believe it's 4 feet for ADA compliance. So, I mean, they are, they would need to maintain 4 feet for, health, objective standards related to health and safety and other state regulations, but they could minimize it to less than 8 under builder's remedy, but 8 is the ideal that we're looking for.
Thank you. And could you please zoom out a little bit? So for the long-term bike parking, so I want to understand the circulation. So say when the person put their bike in the back room and then they want to go to their units, so it will be like they will come this way, back here, and walk all the way, go through all the lobby, all those amenities, and go to the lobby, take the elevator up. And if they live on the other side of the building, they will go up and walk all the way around the building again. Is it the circulation?
I think the way you drew it is pretty accurate. Once you're in the building off the El Camino Real side, you're right in the amenity and inside the building, yes.
And I assume that the amenities on the first floor, there will be partition walls eventually, right? So most likely they will also go through a bunch of doors and then go to their final destination.
Right now, our amenity space is this, so if it was a fitness center on this floor, that would definitely be broken off away. A lot of these amenity spaces like this, it's going to include mail rooms, parcel rooms, co-work, and leasing. All those spaces tend to be very open and integrated with each other, so it's not going to be door after door or going down long corridors.
I see, thank you. And have you ever thought about have another door that is open to the garage, inside the garage?
I would be curious, what would be the service for it?
Well, at least it has better connection to other space instead of go all the way.
Got it. To be honest, with buildings like this, it's always about access control and keeping everything secure. These bike rooms are notorious for getting vandalized and parts stolen off bikes, including people that live in the building. So by keeping less doors and spaces, you're keeping more control and keeping things more secure. But the more porous the building is, the more insecure it is, honestly.
Okay, thank you. And if you, sure, go ahead.
I'm going to chime in here. I am noticing that you do have a door between the pet spa and the bikes. So maybe that door gets closed and another one to the parking garage gets open. And to sort of talk about a context of that, I could see somebody saying, okay, I've got my mountain bike, I'm going to go mountain biking for the weekend. They need to load their bike onto their car instead of having to go bring their bike out through the co-working space, then back into the garage. It would be much more effective to have that. I agree with Board Member Chen on this quite a bit, and maybe it's not necessary to have one into the pet spa.
We can take a look at that. Great. Thank you.
Thank you. And another thing, if we move on to the upper floor, so access to the clubhouse on the rooftop, on the upper floor, it will be the same thing, like if people live on the other side of the building, they need to go all the way around, which is about like over 300 feet, something like that?
This building is not 300 feet long. This is a substantially smaller building.
Okay.
Than the 3606 site. The building, I think people are walking around 150 feet max. I mean, the garbage chute is centrally located, so they're walking less for that.
Can you say the people living here and they want to access to the clubhouse, they will go this way, right?
Yes, that would be the connection there.
Okay. Okay, and also just curious about the privacy. So say here, the elevator here, it's actually, and the stair is actually just in front of these 2 units doors. So have you considered anything about that?
That is generally a condition that occurs on projects. Are you thinking of some sort of screening?
Okay.
But we can look at it. It's a common condition, but we can look at that.
Okay, and if we move on to the courtyard floor plan. We saw there are lots of things going on here. We have great plantings there, and we also have spa there, but your section doesn't reflect this amenities. So could you please explain like the elevation changes here?
So the courtyard's all at one level. There is no up and down. The spas will be raised because we need transfer stations for those. Otherwise, we have to have the big arms that drop you into them. So other than that, that's all flat. And then there are some raised planters. There's kind of a U shape that will be a buffer around the residences. And then other than that, it's a pretty flat courtyard.
So do you know how many feet it will be raised up to incorporate all those trees planted there?
I'm going to guess those are stormwater.
Yeah, the planters will be maybe 2.
I'll let you answer. You know more about landscaping.
Hi, I'm Daniel with the Gazzardo Partnership, the landscape architect. So there's a variety of different raised planters. It would be different heights, varying from 20 inches all the way up to 42 inches tall for the stormwater planter, which is in the upper left corner. And the planters can also mound the soil so that there's additional soil depth for the trees to grow. So a kind of a variety of heights for the different planters.
Okay, so for the railings or all around here, it's more like a retaining wall that holds up the dirt for the planting, is it correct?
Not exactly a retaining wall. The planter heights would be the same on both sides, typically. So it's the same height, but it could be mounded in the middle.
Okay. And I also want to understand the elevation change. So from the building corner, it seems like the upper floor are bumped out. And is there any other places that you have the similar feature?
That step out on the first and second floor articulation is mainly on the main frontage, but if you look at the courtyard level, you'll see a lot of those larger patios, and that's a building step back, so very similar. The whole building has a step back, technically all the way around.
Yeah, I'm talking about this portion here. It seems like from the rendering, the upper floors are projected out. Is it correct?
Oh, good question. That is something we've looked at structurally. It can be achieved in wood, so we're not adding any cost, but there is about a 3 to 5 foot setback.
Okay. And is there any other places like this white piece here and this, are they all projected out as it is, as the other one?
They are not. That is a unique space. It's our amenity, so we wanted to highlight it. Everything else is residential.
Okay, I see. Okay, and what is the roof material here, and what's the thoughts about that? It seems like it's quite different from the other part of the building.
Right, so what you're seeing is an elevation, which is always, that's not how you experience a building. So when you look at the perspectives, what you see is a flat roof. We understand that that roof is pretty big. It can't really be achieved that flat. So what we're doing is we're hiding the truss work in a shallow truss above it. So it's technically a gabled roof around there, but shallow, so you won't see it. It'll look flat.
All right, thank you. Do we have any other questions? Yeah, go ahead.
So I have a question, like the balconies that you have, do you think the balconies, are you putting the balconies because you're trying to comply with the code, or you think the balconies are actually appreciated by the future residents? And I can tell you why I'm asking, but maybe you say
Yeah,
first.
it's a good question. Me personally, as the architect designing it, I know that those decks are going to have a lot of furniture and people put their move-in boxes out there, so it's clutter. The reality is people like having exterior space and it helps rent the units, and that's why they're there. It's for the residents.
Yeah, I think, these balconies make the building very like nervous from outside. I think they really affect aesthetic. And I think you could probably, have a much easier, time designing a nice building without the balconies. So, yeah, if you really need it for the residents, I guess you have to have them, but I would probably suggest you don't have balconies because of the clutter. And then if you have, maybe, can you think about, making the balconies like higher quality? Because I think that the railing is, kind of looks cheap and is prone to displaying clutter.
Sure. I will note that the city has a requirement to have 100 square feet of private open space for folks. So this is kind of also working towards that requirement from the city. And we find that, we rent many units to the Bay Area, and we find this to be a really attractive feature for a lot of residents, and understand that some people sort of use them as storage, but a lot of people use them as, real private amenities within their unit. So we find them to be very valuable.
Well, I know that's, what the city says, but, this is also a builder's remedy, so you can ask for waivers. And I think the city also wants pretty buildings. Like in this case, is kind of, one goal defeats the other one, but, that just was a question. And then, I also have another question about, the first and second floor are kind of protruding, compared to the rest of the building. Is that kind of an accurate description? So I think, that feature just, to me contributes to this building looking, massive. It almost looks like, some antique monument that it's on a pedestal. Like you have this huge kind of brick or concrete pedestal, and then there is a 5-story building on top of it. Like to me, I think it would look kind of more elegant if you had the lines, more, more aligned. And I know, you are. I think it's another one of those things where you're trying to, be nice, because of the setback. But I think, from an aesthetic standpoint, we might be shooting ourselves in the foot. So have you thought about that?
We can look at it. Thank you for the comment, yeah. It would be a major design change to the project, but we can look at it.
And, sorry, can I jump in here as well, just for a second, regarding the setback?
Yeah.
Just really quick, on all the sheets, the floor plans, they've got this big red line saying required setbacks, but it's not really required for you guys, is it? Can you clarify that a little bit for me?
I don't know what sheet you're looking at. It could be a fire line setback that we need.
Any of the floor plans, floor 1, floor 2, floor 3, it's a big red line going around the property that says it's labeled as required setback. So I'm just trying to understand that, because on the upper levels, there's portions here and there that are crossing the boundary. And while Board Member Joe Jarth is talking about this, I just want to make sure that we're all understanding what setback is actually required versus what sort of would be required if this wasn't a builder's remedy setback.
Yes, correct. I think this might be a vestige of just getting a complete application, and one of the requirements was to put on the required setbacks. I think this is probably in response to the focus area setbacks. Stephen might be able to correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, I think this is just a vestige of having complete application, but isn't actually relevant to this design.
Correct.
So on that note, what are the actual required setbacks would be the question, to make sure we're not going over them or crossing the boundaries here.
Well, we're getting a little bit into semantics here, but I mean, the zoning district does provide for a required setback. Builder's remedy allows the application or the project proposal to deviate in a manner that's in accordance, say, with state law. They're limited on the number of either waivers or concessions. So if that's tied to providing density of the project or maybe financial viability of the project, having it meet those required setbacks, then the project could deviate. So just also want to point the direction to that attachment D with those two tables for the project and where it either meets or does not meet those setbacks. So that's where kind of that information lies in table form, if you will, rather than looking at the plan set.
Yeah, may I continue? Yeah. So I think, maybe there's kind of a better middle ground, maybe kind of splitting, like those two, kind of two setbacks, the first and second floor versus the rest of the building, try to make the building more regular shaped. And then on the similar, note, like on the first and second floor, you have those like really bold, lines with the brick, especially around the large glass windows. And I think those also contribute a lot to the mass of the building. It kind of feels a little bit like monotonous, like almost like walking past like a castle. Like some medieval castle. And I think in the other project you had the gym or something on the first floor, and there was a recess in the building that was on the facade. I think that was quite nice. So I was thinking, if you could come up with some way to break up this first and second floor that kind of looks a little massive.
Yeah, understood. And I think our approach here is we have those glass facades along El Camino, but internally the programming shifts. So we'll have the mailroom, the parcel room, co-working. So as you're walking by as a pedestrian, you're looking in, the programming on the interior is shifting, which the intent is to add, visual interest along with just the kind of dynamic amenities for our residents. But I understand that it's a long stretch and it's the same condition.
Yeah, you would need to change something inside, I think. And by the same comment is on the Curtis side, where you have that looks like those two massive entrances, like one for the pedestrians. Maybe you could go to the sheet AP01, for example. Yeah, you have that kind of massive entrance on the left side for the pedestrians, and then you have what looks like a massive entrance for the cars. And I understand kind of the top portion of the black box is probably the second floor of the parking lot, but it just looks like one huge massive entrance, and is flanked by those two really wide brick walls that have no window, no architectural feature, no aesthetic ornament, nothing. So it's almost like, a huge concrete wall, and you have this huge opening in the middle. You expect some tank to go through, or it looks, I think this facade, it's just kind of too massive. And there's, Curtis is a very residential street. This looks, very much out of space. And I think, it could be designed with a little bit more finer elements.
Yeah, point well taken. I think we can definitely kind of look at those spaces, take a look at those spaces again.
Yeah. On a similar, if I may just continue, I was looking at the garage. We can stay on this, page. Where the garage is open, towards the sides on Curtis, and then also there is the neighboring property on the right, and also the neighboring property in the back. And you have this kind of an opening for the garage, and you have that metal grate, or almost looks like chain link fence, painted black to close. And I would say, I think that also contributes to the building kind of looking a little rough. And I'm really worried about the neighboring residents, because there is that small 2-story building on the side, and all they are looking at is your car park. So I think if you can think about ways to make that more pleasant looking, and maybe that maybe there could be a live wall. With ivy, or some plants, or you could have more architectural metal, kind of rather than the chain link, looking fence, maybe some architectural metal, for those openings, or make it from wood. 'Cause I think that the wood soffit detail that you have is very pretty. So maybe you could use more of that, wood in other, areas to make the building more kind of light.
Yeah, understood. We can definitely look at some strategies that might soften that, that screening, because we do, of course, want to soften that look of just looking directly into parking. And on a lot of our other buildings, we found great solutions that really sort of soften that visual experience. So we can certainly do that here.
I think I had one other thing. But and then the last thing I would say, have you looked at, maybe some other color combinations? Because I feel that the stucco, the white stucco, and then the dark, you have basically the white stucco, and then you have the black metal railing, you have the dark gray stucco, you have the dark brick. It creates a lot of contrast. So have you tried other combinations?
Or maybe you can speak to the coloring of it all.
So we have two projects that are right down the street from each other, and we have looked at the color palettes. This palette right here is a more cool grays, so like blue grays. The other project has a warmer color palette, so we were intentionally making the two color palettes different. The other building has less contrast. This building has more contrast. So that's why the two buildings are different, and that's why this building has that current color palette.
I see. Okay, yeah, these are all my comments.
I've got a couple more, if that's all right. Sorry, did you have more as well? Okay. On that subject of color palettes, do we have a materials board here?
We do.
We have not gotten a chance to see that yet, so we'd love to see that. And I'm going to bring up a comment, and it really is more of a comment than a question. I discussed this on one of your previous projects, the one down the street, the unit J1.0 with the bedroom that's sort of landlocked in the middle of the apartment. I'm always going to take issue with that one, that bedroom has no window, so I'm just going to point that out again for the record, that and it's on sheet AP 4.02, J1.0 unit plan. It's one of the bedroom that sort of has no windows to itself. I always have an issue with plans like that, so just pointing that out. With going back to the bike room, thank you. Going back to the bike room, I was also noticing as Board Member Chen was speaking that the bike room seems to have columns in the path of travel. So I'm curious if there's a better way to split the bikes to the outside walls and the path of travel is up the middle, or if you guys have worked through how you're going to get around those columns that appear to be in the path of travel.
That's a good catch. This is a planning level design.
Sure.
We have not initiated our structural engineers to that level, but we will not have columns in the walkways.
Got it. Thank you. What was the other thing? I had one other. Oh, I guess that's it for now. I'm going to take a look at the materials board. If I have any questions from that, I will let you know.
I have a couple of questions, maybe need to clarification from the staff. So for the upper floor step back, so is there any definition on what the upper floor it is? So originally I thought it's always talking about the top floor when we're reviewing the other projects. However, here it is said starting from the third floor, it's starting setback. So could you please clarify that?
Yeah, so that would be above, I believe the measurement is 24 feet or roughly around the third floor. So that's where the podium is located on the structure, as well as that open space. So that is where we were seeing a little bit of a step back along El Camino Real, as well as on those rear lot lines adjacent to those residential uses. So having a setback there.
However, if it's along the El Camino Rail, over 20 feet above the adjacent building, it should be like the apartment building next door, is it correct? The step back?
We can look into that.
Okay, thank you. And another thing is based on the objective standards, we have requirement for like 30 feet from window to window to the adjacent residential units, but actually per the section on sheet AP 3.20, the two-story townhome next to it, it seems like it's only over 20 feet. So which means it doesn't apply to it, is it correct?
We can confirm the measurement, but again, with a builder's remedy project, a project could request a waiver.
Okay. And if we go to the floor plan, the third floor plan, the one with the courtyard. Have a question to the applicant. Could you please zoom in a little bit? So we have some non-compliance private space along the El Camino Rail. Have you ever think about extended to the parapet wall along the street, just as what you did at the back of the building? You have the larger private open space. So can you do the same thing for the smaller ones so that it will comply with the open space requirement?
If there would be a podium lid there, so we would likely amenitize it, yes, and give it to the unit.
And on the rendering, you show some plantings along this edge. Will you do the same thing along this edge as well?
So we do have the 5-foot setback along the fitness center, and we have been coordinating to make sure we can get that planting in there and also be able to maintain it.
Okay, thank you. And that's all my questions for now. So Kendra, do you have additional?
Yeah, I just wanted to try and point out the materials board here and make sure that we get that on camera at some point. So I'm going to talk until that zooms in here on this board over here. Let's see if we can get that in the camera. Just so that we can, there we go, thank you so much. And I'll move that out of the way, just to get that on record that we've got that here. And then it does look like the white area of the stucco is not quite white. It's being noted as Benjamin Moore gray cloud. Any chance you guys know the LRV of that off the top of your heads, or we can Google that real quick?
I don't know off the top of my head, but
Okay.
to that point, we don't use white on buildings. It gets dirty.
And it's
So we
very
use
bright.
gray.
So just, I would like to note that it was really not a true white. It really is sort of more of a light gray color, which actually I appreciate. So that was it. And thank you to cameras for zooming in on that.
If there is no more questions, then we will close to the public portion and return to the ARB for internal discussion and comments. Board Member Georges, you want to start?
So, I'm a little bit torn, with this, project because it almost feels like, there are a lot of kind of details that still kind of have to be kind of worked through. And I think you are trying to go to the city council in a couple of months, like two months. What was it, March? Like I don't know how that's possible. But yeah, I think like from my standpoint, I think there are a lot of open questions. For me, the design doesn't. It's kind of. I think it's good for like a rough design. I get this is the kind of building you want, but like in terms of the final aesthetic, I think it's. I think you would also agree it's in work in progress, probably. And like I don't think we want this kind of a look, on El Camino, or at least I wouldn't want. I think there's a question of the balconies. There's the building just looks extremely massive. It stands right next to a building which won the design award, a Palo Alto Design Award. And I mean, the contrast between the two buildings could not be bigger. And it does not favor this building. And I think this building could be made like so much nicer without, affecting any of the, density bonus and, all of that. It's not, I don't think it's about that. It's just, this is kind of like a first pass, it looks like. And I think the balconies, I think these kind of the first and second floor, it looks very massive, especially with the large windows. I think that whole first and second floor could be more refined. The entrances, are massive. I think the screening for the neighbors, would be good to document it or like come up with some good ideas. I know it says gray, on the color palette, but to me, the contrast is still very big. I think there were some questions about the landscaping, how to do it on the El Camino side. I think that would improve. So I think there are just a lot of questions, in this, for this, project. So I'm not even, I'm not, quite sure what's, the next step. It sounds like we have to approve it because you're going to the city council. But like, to me, this is not at that stage.
All right, thank you. Kendra, you want to be next?
Sure. We've seen work from your firm and your team before, which I do want to say we've appreciated over the time. This is one of those projects that I'm going to defer from Board Member Joe Jarth here for a minute. I actually find that the more I look at it, the more I like it, to some extent. I do like the hiding of the parking structure along El Camino, right? I think that's a very clever situation. You use that on previous projects as well. I actually really like the courtyard facing south. I think that it breaks up that facade quite nicely. I think that it makes the internal layout feel really cohesive, that you've got sort of the C shape around the courtyard and then this sort of appendage off to the side. It all sort of is pretty cohesive in the layout. My issue really comes with the backsides and that parking structure is that, like Board Member Jojo said, the parking structures with the grates, they just sort of feel heavy. There's on the Kertner side, there's this sort of up and over U-shaped gray portion that I'm not really sure why it's there. Probably to break up the facade to some extent, but I don't know if it's succeeding in the way that you want it to. Maybe that could be better done with just planting, right? Something like that. So anywhere that you've got that double height, whitish or light grayish facade with the grates in it that is the parking structure, all of that needs a little more time and attention and figuring out how to make that really blend. And especially because that really is facing long-term residents of Palo Alto, single-family homes in that back corner, and some of these people in the low cottage style. I think there are only 2 stories on Kertner for those apartment buildings over there. So just giving those a little bit more finesse. I'm not as opposed to the sort of extra-large garage door. That doesn't bother me so much. I think it's just because it sort of feels in proportionate to the double-height glazing windows. So to me, that's not very offensive. I actually quite like it. It's really the rest of the parking structure that just needs a little bit more time and attention, especially to say thank you to the neighbors and not something else. I like the brick. I find that to be quite nice. I appreciate the ins and outs on this building. I think in elevation, it does look very flat, and the renderings are really what help you understand how much dynamics the facade of this building has, and I do appreciate those. Just some final wrap-up comments. Like Board Member Chen said on floor 3, anywhere you can give those places more balcony space because it's taking over the roof of the parking structure, do it. Anywhere you can do that. Also, there's that below market rate J 1.0 in the back that could also benefit from that as well. And that would make that unit quite a bit more enticing to have its own little private balcony in that direction. I'm going to very strongly encourage you get that 3rd elevator in. I understand that it may be quote unquote overworking the area, but I think just for feasibility and ease of daily use, it's not going to be that tremendous of an expense, and it's going to make the people living in that back corner just feel like life is just that much easier on a daily basis. So I would really strongly encourage that one. And then final comments would be just the bike room, path of travel, trying to figure out that move-in area. I definitely agree with the concept that if you can't get around that one corner in the lobby, it's better to find out there than upstairs. So I buy that. I appreciate that. But it would be nice if we can just make sure to be neighborly and try and find a way to get a moving truck or something off the street. Because if this is going to have any sort of turnover to it, you're going to have a moving truck on that street with some regularity that's going to really impede the people living on Kertner. Other than that, I appreciate the fitness. I appreciate the courtyard. I think those are all really nice. The trash is well thought out. I like that. I appreciate the balconies. And again, just sort of, it is clever to get that parking to the inside of the project where it's really out of visibility. To the commenter who was sort of asking about whether or not there's any commercial going back in, it is always a little disappointing when we can't get a cafe or something in, but we've hit this stumbling block a lot of times, and I understand it. And it's one of those where it's always a nice to have, but it's not a requirement. But I do appreciate the concept that you've got the pet spa and the bike shop in there. And I would say if those are any possibility of making those open to the public would be great. But I also understand there's some constraints with you guys on your back end for that. But overall, I'm actually reasonably satisfied with the project. It will benefit a lot from a lot of these plantings that you've shown in the renderings as well. So just keeping an eye on that. I like the wood a lot, and I did want to point that out, that I think that wood on the underside is really a way to warm up a building like this. So that's a benefit as well. I don't really have any further comments. I'm not quite sure of next steps. So I'm going to turn this over to Board Member Chen and would love to hear her thoughts.
Thank you again for your presentation. I think there are lots of features I like for this project, and thank you so much for bringing a housing unit here. I think there are lots of good things, and we need a housing, like an apartment like this for a reason. And also, I think, especially for the street corner looking, I think it's quite attractive. I like the how you break up by using the vertical walls and also bump out the upper portion and also step back the clubhouse at the very top. I think it's quite attractive. However, I think there are lots of issues as well, especially to this specific lot when there are most of the adjacent buildings are 1 story or 2 stories. The 7th story is just too tall, and it's huge. It's just out of scale for this location, and especially compared to the recently built Wilton Court project, it's almost double the height. So I just felt it's kind of out of scale. However, and I understand it's a builder-friendly project, so there's limited things we can do. But I just want to say, for this specific site, it would be great if we can lower the building height and to be more compatible to the adjacent neighbors. Because for now, it's hard for me to find the ARB finding number 2. Let me see where it is. Yeah. Finding number 2E, enhanced living conditions on the site and in adjacent residential areas. So what I'm looking at the adjacent neighbors, no matter if it's on the Kertner Avenue or on the Wilton site, there are 1 story. So it's actually you block the light and you block the views. So to me, I think it's hard for me to find you meet the requirement here. But so I don't know what the next step it could be. So to the staff, so it seems like we have 2 choices. Most likely we should approve these recommendations. However, if we deny this project, there will be no list provided for the reason why we deny it, right?
Yeah, so I would just say that you're providing a recommendation, not a decision on the project. So you are welcome to make whatever recommendation that you see fit. I would encourage, because many of these things are not applicable to the project, and we may have to move this forward under state law.
Right.
I would just encourage you, regardless of whatever recommendation you make, to list out any recommended conditions or anything that you would like to see modified on the project.
Okay, thank you. So is there any additional thoughts for this before we make a motion? No? So anyone want to make a motion for this?
You can,
Yeah?
no.
Oh, okay.
I'll do it. I'm going to recommend that City Council approve the project based on the findings with the following conditions. And if we can do a type-up list, I would appreciate that. So I'll wait for...
Coming right up.
Thank you, Stephen. And since this is our wish list, I'm going to add that 3rd elevator. So number 1, add a 3rd elevator in that general wing of the, the northeast wing. I don't think I need to list the bike lane path of travel or the bike room path of travel. You guys will just figure that out with the structural engineer, so I'm not even going to add that.
Just add it.
Add it anyway. Okay, making sure that there's a clear path of travel in the bike room. And also, let's add for the bike room a door to the parking garage. I do think that's important for the people using that space. So bike room path of travel is clear. And a door to the garage. Door to parking. Okay, perfect. Did you have anything you wanted to add about the railings?
Well, one of your items was the moving truck. And I don't know if they can comply with it, but since our recommendation is kind of,
A wish list.
is a wish list, I think we should add the wish list around a better, making space for a moving truck or creating a more a safe situation for moving.
Yeah, so let's do adding a loading space off-street, and just leave it at that. It doesn't need to be internal, it doesn't need to be external, just add a off-street loading space. Perfect. I like that.
And I think the other item that at least you and I agree on is the screening of the parking garage from the residents. Find some more aesthetic solution.
So we can label that as improvements to screening of parking garage screening to neighbors, whether it's planting or aesthetics or something, just, again, leaving that somewhat open-ended. Go ahead, Board Member Chen.
Yeah, I think although the code only require like 4 feet clearance for the sidewalk, but I think it's important to keep 8 feet clearance. And I think there is room to do it because on the elevations, you have all those bump out and in and out. So I think there is space that you could add some architectural features to bring the entry door along El Camino Way in so that the sidewalk is clear.
I thought that
To
side was
improve the
not that
pedestrian
bad.
experience.
Okay, front yard on Kurtner's 15. See El Camino side.
If you look at the sheet, drawing sheet.
Yeah, because it's saying on the, again, attachment D, it says minimum front yard on El Camino. It says that they're proposing 12 feet.
So 12 feet is from the curb to back of walk, and then there are amenities in that. The objective standards under 1824 do encourage also having 8 feet clear. And so ideally, you're having 12 feet from back of walk to the curb and 8 feet clear under the objective standards.
Yeah, if I'm reading this correctly, it looks like that there is a 4'7" clear from the front of building to the property line, and then there's an additional space from the property
Yeah,
line to
so-
the planting strip, so that to
So
me.
the specific area I'm talking about is the lobby area, the door swing, so you can see.
Maybe that door swings inward. Maybe that's the answer right there. Yeah, because I see what you're saying. If that swings out, then you're going to be, smacking somebody who's walking on
I
the
just have
sidewalk.
to say, for life safety egress, the door has to swing out.
Has to swing out. Well, then, yes, I would argue with Board Member Chen that maybe that gets nudged back in architecturally. So recessing the entry doors so that the swing of doors does not smack somebody in the face who's biking down the sidewalk. That would be a good idea. Okay. So 5 number 5. I'm not even sure it needs to be phrased as provide the 8-foot clearance. I'm wondering if it's just making sure that to recess that entry door so that it does not provide a potential collision source for somebody coming down that sidewalk.
Is it objective enough for, because on the objective standards, we specifically said 8 feet.
The 8 foot.
Yeah.
Okay, so yeah, let's get the wording back to the 8 foot, including when the doors are open. And thank you for the information about it needing to swing outward. I appreciate that. Okay, anything else you guys want to add?
Yeah, I think about the balconies and the railing.
Say expand all balconies wherever possible on that 3rd floor, just to maximize, so. Expand balconies where possible on 3rd floor.
On the interior.
When it's like sitting right above that parking structure, if you can, it's already built.
Inside the sea.
No, on the perimeter, actually. So like at the front yard, there's, I think Board Member Chen brought this up, on floor 3. So if you flip over to, oh gosh, where is it? Just had it.
Floor 3.
Yeah, floor 3. It's a sheet number. There we go.
Sheet AP 2.03.
Thank you. So Board Member Chen had mentioned those front balconies. There still seems to be an active extra space above the parking garage, so let's expand those front ones out. And then I'm also commenting on that one all the way in the back, the J 1.0, that's a below market rate unit. Just anywhere that those balconies can be expanded because it's already on top of the parking garage, they should do that, sort of embrace that.
Yeah, I would see those as, putting landscaping, on the entire facade on El Camino Real. I see it less an expansion of those 2 balconies or 3 balconies, but more
However, I
comprehensive.
think there would be maintenance issue along the El Camino. As they just mentioned, in front of the fitness center, it's kind of like the common area, so it's easier for the staff to maintain and to water it. However, if it's along El Camino, it rely on the tenants there, or it would be hard.
Yeah, they'd have to move past tenant units to get to those spaces.
Yep. That's just what it is.
I'd rather give them bigger balconies, but that's my preference. What do you think, Board Member Chen?
Yeah, I think a larger private open space would be more benefit to the tenants there.
You okay with this? You're going to keep arguing for the full planting?
We should put in this motion what the minimum bar, and then we can, I think this list could be longer. So we can do that. So how about the balcony, finding some other solution for the railing to, to make it less busy on the front facade and provide more screening if people put their stuff outside.
Okay.
Yeah.
So streamline appearance of balconies on El Camino facade?
Yeah, and make it less transparent, make the balconies less transparent.
Maybe it's even like a frosted glass even, could be something that would just
It could be glass, it could be architectural, metal. I mean, there's so many
perforated
different ways.
differently, okay.
Could be stucco, brick. I think there are a lot of possibilities.
So they're less busy.
And reduce transparency.
Perfect.
I would like to add one bullet point about parking.
Sure.
Because I agree with the public speaker that there is not enough parking. So just, the way I was thinking about it is, there are 24 one-bedrooms or studios. There are 100 one-bedrooms, there are 45 two-bedrooms, and for sure, all of the two-bedrooms need 2 cars. All of the 3-bedrooms need 2 cars, and probably part of the 1-bedrooms need 2 cars. So I think probably try to get the parking at least up to 250 spaces. Because now they have.
But how would you propose that they do that? That's the hard part, is we can wish it, but
They can reduce common space.
But then that's just reducing the amenities for the people living there.
Well, now we are reducing the amenities for the rest of the city. Like where are those cars going to park? And then the city is spending, what, $20 million on building a new parking structure? Like, we are essentially subsidizing these developers by, requiring other people to build parking, so.
Yeah, I understand reality is one thing, however, what they propose is meet the code requirements.
Right.
So I think it's hard for us to require them to add in the parking.
It's a wish list.
Yeah, you're right.
I'm actually with Board Member Chen on this one. They're meeting the requirements, and in some of these cases, they don't have to provide nearly what they are providing. Would I like to see more? Yes. Do I agree with your argument that the city is to some extent, quote unquote, subsidizing their parking? Yes. maybe this goes to staff where there might need to be a parking pass issued for people who live on Kirtner. And if you don't have the parking pass, you can't park on Kirtner sort of deal. But that's, again, maybe not a discussion for right this moment. But I don't think we have the capacity to require that they do more parking.
If I may just chime in here, so in that attachment D, the El Camino Real focus area requirements for parking is 1 per unit, and currently the project exceeds the zoning requirements. So should this not be a builder's remedy project, it would be exceeding those requirements.
Even if it was not a builder's remedy.
Correct.
And with builder's remedy, they have the capacity to reduce that if they want to.
Correct, and the applicant is choosing to provide additional parking than what's required.
And what you're speaking to regarding parking passes, there is a process that's laid out in our code for an RPP, residential preferred parking plan, but there's a whole process of how that would need to be initiated, and basically it requires a certain number of signature from that neighborhood of residents, and there's a lot of requirements related to that. So we can't just, we wouldn't be able to just apply it as related to this project or anything.
Understood. Okay, at this point, Board Member Georgia, I'm going to say I'd prefer to leave the parking off of the list. But if you feel strongly about it, we can have that arm wrestle.
So how about some architectural improvements to make the building less massive?
And again, that's one of those that's difficult for us to impose on them since it is a builder's remedy project, right? They're allowed to build, you know, they get their exceptions, they get their waivers. So it's one of those where it's not like we can ask them to reduce the height.
We can't ask them to do any of this.
Yeah. Through the chair, if we may, I think it would be best to lay out the list of conditions the person making the motion would like to make, get a second, and then we can discuss any friendly or non-friendly amendments.
Fair enough. Okay, then I'm going to say, I'm going to take that building massing off because it's sort of a moot point. I'd like to get a list that you guys might actually consider and find feasible, as opposed to just throwing everything at the wall. So, I'm good with this list at the time being, so if there's any friendly amendments, let's have those now. So this would be the list.
Sorry, let's get a second on the motion, please.
Sorry. I move to recommend that City Council approve the project based on the findings set forth in attachment B with the following conditions of approval: add a third floor elevated northwest structure, clear path of travel within bike room, an addition of the door to the parking garage, and the remainder of this list is written below. So that's my motion. Do I have a second?
I'll second it with a friendly amendment.
Okay.
So I like to see that the proposed building to be at least 30 feet from the adjacent residential buildings, which is aligned with the objective standards requirement.
Well, I hear that. I do not think that we can impose that on them because of the builder's remedy. So again, as much as this is a wish list, it's also one of those that I do want to keep. I don't want them taking this and seeing this as like these crazy recommendations they're just going to toss out.
Yeah, the reason why I brought it up is because I think right now what they're proposed is not far away from 30%. It's about like 27 or something, so it's quite close. And if they push additional a couple of feet more, maybe there is also space for them to have the off-street parking on that driveway side.
So would that shrink their courtyard? Is that what you're
No.
saying, that wing?
No, it's the exterior along the Kirtner next to the, what is that, electric room, transformer?
Oh, at the lower level.
Yeah.
If I may, just to clarify, so you're referring to that southern elevation along Kirtner Avenue?
Right, but the setback I'm specifically talking about is the east side. east side of the townhome side, two-story townhome side.
So where the electric room, stair two, move-in lobby, and fire pump are?
Right, yeah. Because right now, they're just still in the preliminary design, and all those room size could be worked out, and they could work closely with the engineers and find out what eventually the room size is.
Right, but if they're not adjusting the floors above, then that doesn't really matter, because the floors above along that line, along that facade all align, so you could push in the lower level, but the upper
Right.
levels would stay the same.
Yeah, the upper level, let me see the section.
And in order to move that
see.
wing, they'd need to remove a unit, which we can't require them to do.
Because the benefit is also like provide a off-site parking. I think it is essential for them to include it, especially for the moving truck. Let me see the section where the number shows.
Which sheet are you on?
Wait a minute. Lost this. Okay, so it's on sheet AP 3.20. The sections. The section EW section 2. As you can see, the dimension there is, the townhome is 12 feet 6 from the property line.
Sorry, was it A 3.2 you mentioned? or-
AP 3.20, the section sheet.
You know, I'd have to argue that northwest section 1 with that daylight plane going over the two-story residential building is much more offensive to me than the 12-foot 6 from the side story, two-story residential building. So if we can't impose the daylight plane, what's the point of imposing the other one to some extent? Right, that daylight plane is going to completely cut off the sunshine to this person's backyard, and there's nothing we can do about it.
Yeah. So if we could add the wish list to step down the massing, but I know there's nothing we can do at this moment.
Yeah, I'm going to say we'll leave it off. So, and then you can decide if you want to vote for it or not based on that.
Okay, and another thing is I'm not sure if we could request at this area, at this stage, is to make sure that the parking garage, the dead-end parking spot have enough backup area.
I mean, I think that's part of building code, that they have to prove that all their parking spaces actually
Yeah.
work.
And also like the transformers noise, how it will affect the adjacent neighbors.
One we had not talked about. That's on the ground level for now, unless they move it due to a move-in parking space. And it's next to electrical room, move-in lobby. Then you've got storage on the floor above, and then it's basically 2 stories above is the units. I'm less concerned about that noise from that point. And the transformers don't make noise. I mean, there's like a slight buzzing, but
Still, it's
yeah.
kind of close. Okay, that's all my
Okay.
two.
Can we see the list one more time? So apologies, but I'm going to rudely reject friendly amendments. We're usually pretty good about getting on the same page, but just I don't want to ask for things that are beyond what they're ever going to do. So this is my proposal or my motion, and we'll take a vote, see if you guys agree with me or not, and if we don't,
Do you
then
want to
we'll
add
make another one.
anything? Okay.
Ready?
Can we call for vote, please?
Yeah.
Sorry, Sam, sorry. Do we have a second on the motion?
Do you maintain your second?
Well, yeah, I'm really struggle with the building mass. but understand it's a builder remedy, so.
Why don't we add the point about the building mass?
Because I don't want to put something on the list that they're just never going to do, and it is
Well-
so infeasible to the project, right? Like, it's too big of an ask, right? And we know for a fact that they don't have to do it, and we actually know for a fact that we can't even really ask it, because we can't ask them to reduce a mass that would reduce the amount of units that they
But
have.
I think one thing is to actually reduce the mass, and the other thing is to make architectural, aesthetic, decisions that will reduce the appearance of the mass.
I think at this time, we are just make our recommendations to the council, so we want to let the council hear our voice, because we all worried about the massing, right?
Sure. Can we make this recommendation?
You're welcome to make whatever recommendation the board chooses.
Okay. All right, so we'll add in the friendly amendment of, let's see if I can phrase this, through architectural expertise.
No, that's through more refined detailing of the facade.
I'm comfortable with that amendment.
Oh, and one more thing is to provide sections that that reflects what's going on in the courtyard, the spa, the planting.
Yeah, we can ask for that. So to add that friendly amendment in, provide detailed section through courtyard explaining depth of spas and planting. More work for the landscape architect. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to continue my motion. Do we still have our second?
Yeah, another thing is, I'm kind of struggling is the upper floor, upper level step back, because on the El Camino Rail focus area, I think we reviewed several projects that we specifically asked the upper level to step back more than 6 feet.
Were they builder's remedy?
So which floor would you want to step back?
Well, based on the language here, it is set 20 feet above average adjacent building height, so I think at least upper floor, the very top floor.
The very top floor to make it step back?
Right.
On which side?
Along the El Camino Rail, I think that's what the code required.
Yeah, I mean, I would definitely advocate for that. If it's, it might make the units maybe a little bit smaller.
Right. Especially along the El Camino Rail.
But it's only 5 units.
Right.
I think it's a very small portion of the project.
I think it helped the scale-wise, it's more compatible with the 4-story next door along the El Camino Rail.
Sorry, I'm thinking.
If I may, would the board imagine that going in the friendly amendment right above the, or should I say the visual massing?
Yeah, I think we can add it there.
Yeah, that works. Again, I don't know how they would accomplish that. I'm just looking at the plan.
Can we be maybe more specific? We could say, and an additional, how much? 4, 5, 6 foot setback on the 7th floor.
I'm not comfortable putting that out there because if they get close enough with 4 feet versus 7 feet, I'd rather take the 4 feet, right?
Then let's
Because
just
again,
put 4.
it's-
I think we should put a number,
I disagree.
because otherwise it's, 6 inches setback.
Okay, I hear that point.
Because when we look at the current floor plan, they have the non-compliance open space, actually, maybe just cut off those areas.
Maybe remove the balconies, but then that's sort of,
Right.
again,
Yeah.
Or the balcony could be the entire length of the building.
Well, yeah.
Kind of green space in front of the windows.
Yeah, I think the point is we ask them to explore the potentials instead of design for them. So if Kendra, you're okay with adding this point?
I mean, it's not a hill I'm going to die on, so yeah, feel free to add that. If you want to add a number to it, I'm just not going to hold my breath on it. So if you guys want to add that, it's a friendly amendment. Reduce the visual massing of the structure through architectural expertise with refined detailing, facade detailing, and upper story step backs, comma, potentially moving the top floor back by 4 feet. I think you've got an extra 4 in there. There you go. Thank you. Okay. Okay, my motion still stands. Does the second still stand?
Yes.
Going to call for a vote?
Board Member Jojarth?
Yes.
Board Member Rosenberg?
Yes.
Chair Chen?
Yes.
Motion carries 3-0.
Okay, so list of homework. Possible.
All right.
Any final comments?
No. Thank you very much for your
Thank you for your
presentation.
presentation.
All right, so what's next? We don't have any minutes this time, so we will move on to the next is board member questions, comments, announcements. Do we have any? No? If no, meeting adjourned. Thank you.